In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit.
Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell.
Nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole, painted green with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened onto a tube-shaped hole like a tunnel, a very comfortable tunnel without smoke, with panelled walls and floors, tiled and carpeted, provided with polished chairs.
I am, in fact, a hobbit in all but size. I like gardens, trees, unmechanized farmlands. I smoke a pipe and like good, plain food, unrefrigerated. But I detest French cooking. I like, and even dare to wear in these dull days, ornamental waistcoats. I'm fond of mushrooms out of a field, have a very simple sense of humour, which even my most appreciate critics find tiresome. I go to bed late and get up late, when possible. J.R.R. Tolkien.
English writer J.R.R. Tolkien is a towering figure in fantasy literature. He wrote the novel The Hobbit and the classic trilogy The Lord of the Rings, highly imaginative tales of elves, dwarves and wizards in a land known as Middle-earth. The hobbits Bilbo and Frodo Baggins and the wizard Gandalf figured prominently in these stories and became Tolkien's best-known characters. Tolkien was an expert linguist and a long-time professor of language and literature at Oxford University. He was also part of C.S. Lewis's informal group of scholars and writers known as the Inklings. The Hobbit, the work that would make him famous, came out in 1936. The actual moment of inspiration for The Hobbit came at an unlikely moment. The story goes that he was grading an examination of some students who were taking his class, and one of the students had left one of the essay questions blank. In a moment of whimsy, Tolkien wrote in that blank, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." This sentence gave him a start on the story that would provide him with a showcase for the elvish language he'd been working on. That was the original reason Tolkien began working on the story. The Hobbit, subtitled There and Back Again, follows the adventures of the hobbit Bilbo Baggins as he travels across the lands of Middle-earth with a band of dwarves and a wizard named Gandalf on a quest to restore a dwarven kingdom and a great treasure stolen by the dragon Smaug. Tolkien's The Hobbit, as well as the entire trilogy of The Lord of the Rings, is filled to the brim with wonderful fantasy characters. I simply can't wait for you to get to know them. Here are just a few. Bilbo Baggins is a small, furry-footed hobbit from a respectable family. Commonsensical and fastidious, Bilbo leads a quiet life in his comfy hobbit hole at Bag End. For reasons yet unknown, the wizard Gandalf selects Bilbo to help the dwarf Thorin in his quest to regain his gold from the evil dragon, Smaug. Bilbo becomes the company's burglar, and this adventure awakens his courage. Bilbo, the protagonist of this story, goes on a hero's journey and returns from his quest quite a different hobbit than he was before. Gandalf, known to the hobbits as Gandalf the Grey, is an important figure in the larger affairs of Middle-earth. Gandalf seeks Bilbo's help in Thorin's quest to reclaim the gold taken from him by the dragon Smaug. A powerful wizard who prefers to keep his powers and motives closely guarded, Gandalf serves as Bilbo's guide and mentor through his hero's journey. Thorin Oakenshield is the leader of the dwarves. Brave, stubborn, and proud, in fact too proud for his own good, Thorin seeks to reclaim his inheritance from Smaug the dragon, who sits atop the gold in the lonely mountain. While the dwarves look to him for leadership, Thorin is driven by greed, which causes him to make hasty and poor decisions. Smaug, the terrible dragon of Lonely Mountain and this tale's antagonist, long ago invaded the land of Elsgaroth, took the ancestral treasure of the dwarves as his own, and now lies atop a pile of stolen wealth, little suspecting that his one small weakness will be his undoing. His breath can scorch a city, and his conversations with Bilbo expose him as an arrogant and hateful beast with a dark sense of humor. When Bilbo becomes separated from the band of dwarves, he stumbles into a cave and meets Gollum. This decrepit, strange and lonely creature once lived above the ground, but now resides far beneath Misty Mountain. Gollum slithers deep inside his cave with only his precious to keep him company. When Bilbo first arrives in the caves, Gollum is brooding over his lost precious until Bilbo finds it. Gollum becomes increasingly agitated and wants to eat Bilbo, and a riddling battle of wits ensues. An inanimate object, but a character all the same. The ring is a magic ring of power that renders its wearer invisible. The ring was forged by the Dark Lord Sauron in order to seize control of all Middle-earth, and the story of Bilbo is just the beginning, as we will see hints of its dark nature, and allusions that the ring has a sinister will of its own. As you read The Hobbit, dear children, you will encounter several groups of mystical creatures. May I introduce to you the dwarves, the elves, trolls, goblins, wargs, and giant spiders. Now, darlings, now that you've had a chance to meet some of the characters from The Hobbit, get out a piece of paper and let's get some of your thoughts down. Now let's suppose that 13 strangers appeared at your door, expecting you to go on a treasure hunt with them. Would you welcome the invitation, or turn it down? Number 2. What do you expect the hero of an adventure novel to be like? Come up with at least 5 attributes or qualities of a hero that you would expect to see in a novel, and then think of 5 attributes or qualities that you would not expect to see in a hero. The main character in this novel is Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit about half the size of an adult human, not too unlike myself. How do you suppose Bilbo will cope with large enemies such as trolls and dragons and giant spiders? It's quite a challenge for me, so how do you believe that Bilbo will handle it? Poor Bilbo. His traveling companions frequently underestimate him because of his small stature. They just don't believe that he could possibly do anything heroic. How might you respond to someone who repeatedly questioned your abilities? The Hobbit is all about good versus evil. If you had the power to conquer one evil in the world, what would it be? Why? How might you overcome this evil? What would you do to defeat it? Tolkien's The Hobbit is one of those novels that adults can read over and over. Think about some of the stories or cartoons that you enjoyed as a child and still appreciate now. What qualities do these tales have in common? And now, my lovelies, I think you're good and ready to start reading The Hobbit. I'm so excited to be reading along with you. Cheerio, now let's go. Chip chop. Ta-ta.